Tuamitakiapi, Leampe Tuashte. As 2024 comes to a close, we're taking a moment to reflect on the stories that shaped our year. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shirley Snavy, and this is ICT's Year End Review. First up, the top stories that impacted Indian country this year.
From historic apologies to political showdowns, this year was packed with big headlines and major developments. Let's begin with a moment that resonated across all Native communities, President Biden's formal apology for the boarding school era.
The federal government has never formally apologized for what happened until today. I formally apologize as President of the United States of America for what we did. I formally apologize.
President Biden's words marked a critical step in acknowledging the pain and trauma Native communities have endured for generations. Reactions were mixed, with many calling it a start, but not enough. Next up, the 2024 elections. This year, we witnessed an unprecedented number of Native candidates on the ballot. 178 candidates across 24 states, representing a 44% increase since 2022. Native leadership is growing and changing the political landscape. These faces and voices will be impacting policy for years to come. 2024 also marked a major shift in how museums handle Native American cultural items. New regulations under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, or NAGPRA, has sent museums scrambling to comply. These new rules aim to streamline the repatriation process, making it easier for Native nations to reclaim ancestral remains and sacred items. But not everyone is happy about it. Museums say the timelines for compliance are too short, while Native communities say the time for delay is long past due. This year's changes to NAGPRA have forced museums and institutions to reconsider how they handle collections of Native items. It's a story we'll continue to follow in 2025. Coles Brings Plenty, a renowned Lakota actor and advocate for Native representation in media, died this year. His disappearance in October following a domestic violence report shocked the Native American community. Days later, his body was found, with authorities reporting no foul play. Known for his role in Yellowstone, Cole was more than an actor. He was a champion for authentic Native representation in film and television. His loss is felt across Indian country, but his legacy remains, inspiring a new generation to tell Native stories with honesty, dignity, and care. The Klamath River runs free once again, marking one of the biggest environmental victories of 2024. In October, 4 hydroelectric dams were removed in the largest dam removal project in U.S. history. Built between 1918 and 1962, these dams promised irrigation, flood control, and power, but instead wiped out salmon runs and damaged tribal communities who relied on the river. Now, the salmon are returning to spawning grounds for the first time in decades, restoring a vital link in the region's natural balance. For the Kaduk and Yurok tribes, this is more than an environmental win. It's a symbol of healing for the land, the water, and their people. This year also marked 100 years since the Indian Citizenship Act, a law that promised rights but left many fights unfinished. Signed in 1924, the act made Native people U.S. citizens with the right to vote. But states used poll taxes, literacy tests, and other tactics to block access. A century later, voter suppression still persists. Tribes face fewer polling locations and limits on ballot collection. The act also raised questions about sovereignty. Citizenship didn't erase tribal nationhood, as tribes still govern themselves today. 100 years later, the fight for justice and equality continues. This milestone reminds Native communities that promised rights still require protection. And another milestone was achieved this year as the National Museum of the American Indian celebrated its 20th anniversary. When the museum opened its doors in 2004, it stood as a symbol of recognition, a long overdue commitment to uplift Native voices and history in the heart of the nation's capital. Over 2 decades, it's become a gathering place for reflection, education, and celebration. This year, the museum marked its anniversary with events, exhibits, and panels spotlighting Indigenous achievements and looking ahead to the future. After 20 years, the mission remains clear to ensure that Indigenous stories are seen, heard, and remembered. It's not just a museum, it's a living testament to culture, history, and pride. And that's a look at some of the most impactful stories of 2024. For more, go to ictnews.org. For ICT, I'm Ebony Delaney.
And now let's turn towards Turtle Island and a look back at some of the stories we covered at the nexus between Indigenous communities and our changing climate.
It's hot and getting hotter. 2024 will be the hottest on record, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The second hottest? 2023. And we know the heat and storms and fires and other climate disruptions hit Indigenous communities disproportionately. And it's not just headline weather events.
A lot of times when people think about climate change impacts and climate change events, they really focus on the extreme weather events like the once in a lifetime 100-year storm, or the major wildfires, or the major tsunamis. And those are all a part of it. But I think over the last year, some of the biggest impacts we've been seeing have been the result of just the changing weather patterns in general. It has an impact on our ability to grow our traditional foods.
And now we'll look at some of the climate stories we covered this year, starting with some big money. The Department of Interior announced more than $120 million in climate grants to more than 100 tribal governments. Tribal leaders must have the resources to prepare and keep their people safe, said Interior Secretary Deb Haaland. The Department of Commerce awarded the United Huma Nation of Louisiana a $56 million grant to fight rising seas. This is not for me, it's for the younger generation, said Huma Principal Chief Laura Ann Chasen. And the EPA announced $300 million in grants to 33 tribal nations, in part to help the transition to clean energy. Included was Washington State's Nez Perce tribe, which landed $46 million in EPA grants. There were, of course, some tough days. In July, Arizona's San Carlos Apache tribe suffered damage and losses to the Watch Fire. We have endured fires before, but the human scale of this one is particularly devastating, said the tribe's chairman, Terry Rambler. In August, Tlingit and Haida officials raced to help tribal citizens in Juneau, Alaska, caught in the path of floods after a glacial dam broke and inundated almost 300 homes. In October, a double whammy. Hurricane Milton rampaged across Florida and the Seminole and Miccosukee nations, prompting a tribal disaster declaration from President Biden. And then Hurricane Helene slammed the eastern band of Cherokee Indians and the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina. These storms are getting more intense, said one Cherokee leader. And there was also some good news. We traveled to the Morongo Indian Nation in California to see the transmission lines the tribe, in a first for Indian country, owns. The lines bring clean, solar-generated electricity from Arizona to the Los Angeles basin. Some say they could be a model for other Native nations.
I just want to share this with the other tribes because it is possible to sit down and negotiate these types of deals. They're not easy, but if you work at it, it's extremely possible.
And in November, voters in Washington state opted to keep the 2021 Climate Commitment Act that raises funds to fight climate change. Tens of millions of dollars will go to Native nations that are at risk from climate change, including $13 million to the Quinault Indian Nation to move 2 flood-prone villages to higher ground. ICT's Mark Trahant and I visited Quinault this year for the first of 5 annual visits to report on the nation's groundbreaking climate mitigation strategies that leaders say can spread.
Indigenous people hold such power, resilience, knowledge, and wisdom. But when we're able to do that in a way to lead the rest of the world out of this crisis, that's the opportunity that we see.
And finally, we reported on a sometimes overlooked constituency. Res dogs. They too are hurt by climate changes, and rescue operations across Indian country are stretched thin. In 15 years of doing this, I've never seen it like this, said Leech Lake Reservation dog rescuer Jennifer Fitzer. What's next? Increased Indigenous leadership. Witness projections for the next in the series of global climate conferences known as COPs.
COP30 is projected to have the largest participation of Indigenous peoples in COP history.
From Ute homelands in what is now Carbondale, Colorado, Stuart Huntington, ICT.
He ali'i ka aina he kawa ke kanaka. He ali'i ka aina he kawa ke kanaka. The land is chief, man is her servant. He ali'i ka aina he kawa ke kanaka. Our land is both a responsibility and a privilege.
We are all children born of water. It is where all life begins. Water embraces and protects us. We revere it in our homes. We need to live close to water. It nourishes and cleanses us. All living things know this. Sometimes water is gentle and floats in the air. Sometimes water is harsh and powerful. Sometimes it catches the sun's rays. Water changes with the seasons, alive and always moving, even when no one is looking. Water is patient. Water endures. Water brings clarity. Water purifies our thoughts. Water brings us together. Water is holy. Water helps us heal. Water is medicine.
2024 was a big year for Indigenous athletes. Let's look back at some of the best sports moments that had us all cheering.
Mahomes flings it. It's there. He'll be bringing the ball up. They get the cutting water. Fires away. Fogle now out of the box.
From victories on the ice to milestones on the court, 2024 was an unforgettable year for Indigenous athletes. Let's dive into the biggest sports moments that had us all cheering this year. Kicking things off, a triumph on the ice. Mohawk hockey player Brandon Montour and the Florida Panthers made history this year, clinching their first ever Stanley Cup title. After last year's heartbreaking defeat to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Panthers fought their way back to the top, defeating the Edmonton Oilers 2-1 in the Stanley Cup final. Montour played all 7 games, contributing 2 assists and 2 points. Congrats again to Brandon Montour and the Panthers. In the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs continued their domination by winning their 3rd Super Bowl in the last 5 years. With help from Choctaw citizen James Winchester and Potawatomi citizen Creed Humphrey, the Chiefs defeated the San Francisco 49ers in a comeback victory 25-22. This Super Bowl victory gives Winchester his 3rd ring while Humphrey received his 2nd. Moving to basketball, Dallas Mavericks guard Kyrie Irving made waves in the NBA Finals against the Celtics. The Standing Rock Sioux citizen lit up the court as the Dallas Mavericks faced off against the Boston Celtics. This was his first Finals appearance since 2016 when he helped the Cavaliers take down the Warriors. Kyrie put up solid numbers, averaging 19.8 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds against the Celtics. The Mavs struggled early in the series but made a statement with the massive 122-84 win in Game 4. While the Celtics ultimately took the series, Kyrie proved once again that he's a force to be reckoned with. Golden State Warriors forward Lindy Waters III was nominated for the NBA Social Justice Champion Award. The Kiowa and Cherokee citizen has made incredible efforts through his foundation and his elevated native basketball tournaments that take place in Oklahoma. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Trophy recognizes players who are driving change, inspiring others to reflect on injustice and take collective action in their communities. While the award ultimately went to Karl Anthony Towns, Lindy's impact on his community is undeniable. Waters is currently averaging 6 points, 2.6 rebounds, and 1.4 assists so far this season. And finally, we want to give a shout out to the 2024 North American Indigenous Athletics Hall of Fame inductees. The 2024 class of inductees included 77 new athletes, coaches, and teams who will receive honors for their athletic achievements. Among the notable inductees include Kiowa and Cherokee citizen Lindy Waters III, Ojibwe citizen Jordan Nolan, a hockey player and 3-time Stanley Cup champion, and Cowichan tribe citizen Richard Peter, a Paralympic gold medalist. From the rink to the court, 2024 showed us that Indigenous athletes continue to dominate at every level.
It's been a year of power moves and groundbreaking firsts for Indigenous communities around the world. From Hollywood to Parliament and even the WNBA, Natives are shattering records, breaking barriers, and making sure their voices are heard. Let's spotlight the trailblazers who changed 2024 for the better.
First up is actress Lily Gladstone from the Blackfeet tribe in Montana. Her role in Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Actress, as well as the honor of becoming the first Native American to be nominated for that category. Gladstone spoke some of her Blackfeet language when she was accepting her Golden Globe Award for Best Female Actor in a Motion Picture. The film wasn't just a win for Gladstone, it put the Osage Nation Native American actors and crew in the spotlight too. ICT even got to attend and cover the Oscars this year with yours truly, a major moment for Native representation in Hollywood, which has only increased with shows like Reservation Dogs, who got 4 Emmy nominations, including 1 for Outstanding Comedy Series. We look forward to what new Native-led content comes out in the new year. In New Zealand, another changemaker, Hannah Rafiti Maipi Clark, represents the Maori Party as a member of parliament. She is the youngest member of parliament in 170 years and is bringing a refreshing and inspiring approach to her position. Maipi Clark went viral for initiating the haka during a voting session in Parliament on the Treaty Principles Bill, a bill which would take away land and rights from the Maori. The haka is a traditional and ceremonial dance in Maori culture which got Maipi Clark banned from Parliament for 24 hours. The Treaty Principles Bill caused massive demonstrations in New Zealand, including an estimated 42,000 people gathered at Parliament. In sports, Alyssa Peely, Samoan and Inupiaq, was the 8th pick of the 2024 WNBA draft to the Minnesota Lynx. In her college career, Peely played for the USC Trojans and then the Utah Utes. She was named the Pac-12 Player of the Year for the 2023-24 season. This is her message to Indigenous youth.
To keep chasing your dreams, and I hope that me being here in this position does a lot to impact and kind of open that pathway for you. And I'm always somebody who's going to support my people, and it's cultures where if you see one person win, that everybody's winning. So I carry that with pride, and I just hope everybody continues to just not settle for what they want to do in life, and no matter what culture you come from. So it's hard, but if you believe in yourself and you have a good support system, then you can find a way.
To learn about more changemakers, visit our website at ictnews.org.
When I think about the reservation and my life there as a kid, it's a time and a place that I really yearn for because I spent that time with really formative people in my life teaching me what it meant to be Navajo.
as Native Americans substantial rights under the Constitution and laws of this country were going unenforced.
Those traumas show up in our elders throughout our lives, throughout our parents' lives.
A lot of the history is still impacting us to this day.
There's something really powerful that happens when you articulate an injustice. And at NARF, we do that on all fronts.
The Native American Rights Fund is the oldest and largest nonprofit law firm.
Fighting alongside our tribal communities to defend Native American rights.
I see the difference that it makes with our Indian people.
We are facing really challenging times. The right to vote has been under siege.
Without voting, every other right in Indian country that matters falls.
So it's really important to have NARF standing with our tribal people to define voting as part of the fight for tribal sovereignty.
Anytime Native American voters are in a position to swing elections, that's when you see the most egregious violations of their voting rights.
And so we responded to that moment. The Native American Voting Rights Practice Group arose with this rising anti-democratic movement that has been happening across America.
The voting rights litigation that we do is tough. The facts are tough. They're very personal to our voting team, but our wins are big. And we win all the time.
We have to be vigilant in terms of protecting our rights, just like we have these last 53 years.
In order to make good on the promise of America, we have to make sure that every Native American can vote and have the ability to effectuate change in their communities. I think that's the way that we collectively move forward.
The Native vote matters because it's important, because it makes change in all of the states we work in.
When our ballot box achieves justice for Native people, that's when we as a country can really feel faith in our institutions.
This election year, NARF will be leading the fight to protect Native American voting rights in states across the country. Follow along as we tell our stories from reservations, communities, and on the front lines of democracy. Now is the moment. Join us.
As we reflect on 2024, we honor the lives and legacies of those we lost this year. Their impact on communities and culture will never be forgotten.
We were a river losing its water. Then we were trees losing deep roots and a fire burning away. And before we lost heart, some took the new ways and changed them to ours. And their songs became our songs. We made them our own.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.